At the beginning of the film, we see Violet being brutally abused by her husband. The argument between them makes it clear that this wasn't the first time. It had been happening for a long time. Violet was completely exhausted. Her husband was pointing a gun at her, so Violet also pulled out the gun she had hidden. Whether she actually shot him or not isn't shown, and the scene cuts away. Years later, we see Violet again. Now she looks stronger and more confident. Her husband is no longer in her life. As part of her job, she provides therapy to women who have been abused by their husbands. Violet lives in the same house with her sister and her son. After many years, she finally agrees to meet someone, at her sister's insistence. She had never met Henry before, the man she was supposed to see. They had arranged to meet at a 5-star restaurant he suggested. When Violet arrives, she accidentally bumps into a man. Not paying much attention, she walks over to an outdoor seat and starts chatting with the waitress. Then, an older man named Richard approaches her and calls her by a different name. Violet looks at him in surprise. It turns out Richard had mistaken Violet for his friend, who hadn't arrived yet. The two start talking casually. After a while, Richard's friend shows up, and he returns to his table. Violet then notices something strange. Someone was sending drops to her phone. In other words, someone nearby was sending her pictures and messages without having her contact information. Since drops can only be sent by someone close by, she looks around, but everyone around her is on their phones too. She can't figure out who's sending them. While she's thinking about it, Henry finally arrives, and her attention shifts toward him. Violet and Henry sit down together and begin making polite small talk. When Henry asks Violet about her son, she immediately thinks of checking her phone. She looks to see if her sister's message has come through, but instead notices that she's received several drops. She tells Henry about it, and he starts looking around too, because he also knows that whoever is sending those drops must be nearby. Violet tries to ignore it, but after a few more drops, she receives a message that shocks her. "Check your security camera." She quickly opens the CCTV footage of her home and sees masked men breaking in. They're carrying guns, and the sight of it completely terrifies her. Before she can tell Henry, she gets another message from the sender, warning her to stay silent. Panicking, Violet stands up and moves away, trying to call the police. But then she receives another message. "I've cloned your phone. I can see everything you're doing. Don't call the police, or you'll face the consequences." While all this is happening, she accidentally bumps into the same person she had collided with earlier. Violet ignores it again and heads to the restroom. She tries to ask the girls there for help, but she receives yet another message. "Don't try anything stupid." At that moment, Violet realizes that the person is watching her every move. Terrified, she returns to her table without saying a word to anyone. She started talking to Henry again, adjusting her expression, and then asked the man on the phone, "Who are you and what do you want?" The man told Violet that Henry was a photographer sitting in front of her and that he had a camera, and that she had to take out the memory card and destroy it. She could only do that when Henry wasn't at her table. To get him to leave, she cleverly takes off her watch and hides it in her bag. She tells Henry, "Maybe I lost my watch somewhere. Will you help me look for it?" Henry agrees and goes to search, and while he's away, she pulls his camera from his bag. The camera contains photos of the mayor and some documents, proof of the mayor's corruption. Whoever was behind this wanted Violet to erase the evidence. She removes the memory card and quickly puts the camera back. Henry comes back shortly after. After exchanging a few words, she goes to the restroom again and breaks the memory card on her way back. She sends a message to the man saying she's done the job and to pull his people out of her house. The man replies, "Who told you the job is finished? There's still more to do. Open the toolbox. There's a small container inside. You have to make Henry drink the liquid from that container somehow." She realizes it's poison and refuses. She can't take someone's life. The man says, "Okay, if you don't kill him, your son will die." Her son is her weakness. Trapped and blackmailed, she reluctantly prepares to kill Henry. Shaken, she comes out of the restroom and notices the same man she'd bumped into twice before. He had been sitting alone at that table for a long time, using his phone. She feels he's been sending her messages. Before she can react, she sees Henry about to get up from the table, so she goes to him. Henry tells her, "I feel like you're not comfortable around me. You keep making excuses to leave. Maybe I should go." At this moment, Violet stops him, kisses him, and asks him to stay. She says, "I don't have any problem with you. I want you to stay here." While they were talking, a girl left the place, making a lot of noise. She was the same girl who had come to that old man, Richard, the one Violet had spoken to a lot when she first arrived. Seeing this, Violet feels bad, and she encourages him through her eyes. After that, Violet's eyes turned toward the pianist. He also had a bowl in front of him where people were dropping money. Seeing that, an idea strikes her. She takes out a banknote and writes, "Help me" on it with her lipstick. She calls the waiter and asks him to give the note to the pianist, but the waiter instead drops the banknote into the crystal bowl. Violet keeps her eyes fixed on that bowl, not expecting the pianist to notice the note. But luckily, the man sees the note. After reading it, he calls someone, and Violet assumes he's contacting the police. Meanwhile, the waiter serves their food, and Violet notices the same banknote she gave earlier placed on her food plate. On the other side of the note, there's a warning written for her again. She looks back and suspects that the pianist is blackmailing her because, right after having a drink, that man suddenly collapses. This was definitely the work of the same person who didn't want the police to get involved. Violet realizes she has made a huge mistake, thinking she was being clever. The man sends her another message, telling her to check the security cameras. When she does, Violet sees that the man has started torturing her son and sister. Her younger son is even locked alone in a room. Then she receives another message saying, "If you want to fix everything, finish your task." Reading this, she turns to Henry and says, "Let me get you something to drink." The waitress hands her the drink, and just as she's about to mix something into it, she suddenly gets another message saying she has to do this task while sitting at her table. She takes the drinks, places them on her table, and starts talking to Henry. She asks Henry what he saw in her that made him want to meet her. Henry replies that he doesn't meet many people and doesn't use dating profiles because most people lie about themselves there. But that day, he noticed that she had written the truth about herself, and that's what he liked. So he came to meet her. Hearing this, Violet feels happy knowing Henry came because of her honesty. She then starts opening up to Henry about her real life and past. She says her husband used to abuse her badly, even in front of their son, which broke her emotionally. After torturing her, he would apologize and pretend everything was normal again. She used to believe he was truly sorry, so she kept forgiving him over and over just to save her family. But nothing ever got better. When she finally realized that, she decided to move on from it all. While telling this, she becomes very emotional. Henry comforts her and goes to get some chocolates to cheer her up. Taking advantage of the moment, Violet mixes 2 or 3 drops of poison into his drink. When Henry comes back, she hands it to him. Henry is about to drink it, but Violet suddenly realizes she's about to do something terribly wrong. She can't bring herself to confess, so she deliberately spills the drink on Henry, preventing him from drinking the poison. His clothes get soaked, so Henry heads to the restroom to clean up. The man messages Violet again, saying, "You're trying to be too smart." Seeing this, Violet gets furious and starts to believe that the message was sent by the same man who had bumped into her earlier. She's about to go talk to him when her partner arrives. Now she's confused. If he was really waiting for someone, then who was the one sending those messages? She walks up to the waitress. The waitress says, "I've been noticing you for a while now. You look a little nervous. Is your partner bothering you? If that's the case, I can help situations like this happen here almost every day." But Violet doesn't say anything to her and insists that everything's fine, that Henry is fine too. Then Violet asks the same waitress about the man she bumped into earlier. The waitress replies, "That man comes here often. He always reserves the front table, but today he got this one instead." Violet looks over and sees Richard sitting at that table, and the shock begins to take over her mind. She walks up to Richard carrying 2 drinks and offers him one. Richard says, "No, Violet, I've already had a drink." Hearing her name from his mouth, Violet's suspicions turn into certainty. The person who sent her those drops was none other than Richard. After all, since she came here, she never told him her name even once. Violet asks, "How do you know my name?" Richard just laughs and gestures for her to sit down across from him. He offers her a drink, and Violet knows she can't refuse him. After drinking, she asks, "What do you want?" Richard replies, "Just one last job. You know what it is. Finish that, and I'll free you and your son. By the way," Richard adds, "I've got to hand it to you. You're smart. You even stopped Henry from drinking. But because of you, things got messy. That poor pianist ended up dead even though he was innocent. Thank God I noticed your banknote. If I hadn't, we'd both be dead by now." During this conversation, Henry also arrives and asks Violet if everything is all right. Violet replies, "Yes, he's Richard, my friend." Henry and Richard greet each other, after which Violet offers Henry a drink. Henry accepts and drinks it while standing there. After giving him the drink, Violet tells Henry, "Go sit at your table. I'll join you after talking to Richard for a bit." Then she turns to Richard and says, "All right, now get your man out of my house." Richard realizes that Violet has completed her task, so he calls his man and tells him, "It's done." After that, he calmly begins eating his dinner while Violet sits there watching him. When he's halfway through his meal, Violet says, "I lied to you. I didn't put poison in Henry's drink." Hearing this, Richard becomes suspicious and looks down at his food. He suddenly recalls the moment when he had watched Henry drink that glass. During that brief distraction, Violet had actually slipped the poison into his food, not Henry's drink. Realizing this, Richard flies into a rage and pulls out his gun. Seeing this, Violet quickly stands up and steps back as everyone in the restaurant turns to look at them. Henry, who had seen everything from behind, rushes forward to protect Violet. When Richard fires the gun, the bullet hits Henry. As Richard steps toward Violet again to shoot her, a waitress suddenly attacks his arm from behind. His hand twists, and the bullet shatters the hotel's glass window instead. Furious, Richard turns on the waitress and stabs her with a knife, injuring the poor woman. After injuring her, he once again appears in front of Violet, holding a gun. This time, Violet grabs something lying nearby and throws it at him. Richard dodges to save himself, but because of that object, all the glass behind him shatters. Due to the strong air pressure, the wind pulls Richard out, and he falls from the building to his death. The wind also pulls Violet, but just as she's about to fall, Henry rushes forward and grabs her hand, saving her. After a struggle, he manages to pull her up safely. At this point, both Henry and the waitress are injured, but Violet's first concern is her son. She takes Henry's car keys, calls the police, and quickly drives home. At the house, it's shown that the kidnapper is torturing both Violet's son and her sister. They manage to trick the kidnapper and lock themselves in a room, forcing him out. But the man has a gun, and he shoots the lock to break the door open. As he enters, he shoots Violet's sister, and then turns to kill Violet's son, when suddenly, he hears a knocking sound coming from outside. It's Violet, who had already arrived and grabbed a knife as soon as she entered. When the kidnapper comes face to face with her, she rushes forward and stabs him in the shoulder. Enraged, the man lifts Violet and throws her across the room. Now Violet is too weak to fight back, and as he approaches to kill her, her son uses his remote-controlled car to deliver her a gun. Violet quickly picks it up and shoots the man, saving her life. Finally, Violet has saved her son from danger. A little later, we see a scene where Violet visits the hospital, bringing food for Henry and her sister. Her sister survived because the bullet had only grazed her arm, and Henry is now recovering well. Violet decides to start a family with Henry, and everyone is happy. The movie ends on this positive note. Let me know your thoughts. Also subscribe to this channel for more.